So, Sarah, firstly, welcome back onto the Soul Sync podcast.
Lovely. Thank you for having me again.
Now, in this recording today, we're going to be doing a live trance session with Mr. Chao. Now, what I would say to people is if you're coming in and listening to this episode now, I would recommend that you go back an episode.
Yeah.
First of all, and listen to Sarah's full interview, because that will make a hell of a lot more sense of what we're actually doing in this particular conversation today. In the main episode, it's titled "I've devoted my entire existence to trance mediumship under the patronage of Mr. Chou." So, Sarah, I guess firstly, before we kind of get into things, do you just want to briefly explain what you're going to do today, who's going to be coming through, and just a bit about your relationship with Mr. Chou? We won't go into too much detail because obviously that lives on your full interview, but just so people can get a bit of an understanding of what to expect today.
Okay, so basically you're going to have a conversation with Master Chou. So I'll go into the altered state to allow him to step forward. And what you'll notice is my voice will change, the face will change, the body language and mannerisms are all his. And he is an elderly Chinese gent with a naughty sense of humor. And he'll ask you how he can help. So Chou likes to talk to people about what they want to talk about. So it's question-driven, it's subject-driven. So whatever you want to discuss, you can throw it to him as a question, describe a situation, ask his thoughts about it, or however you want to phrase it.
Right. Well, I'm very, very, very excited. And I can't wait to get into it. And we'll see where we go. I'm going to try and ask questions today before we get started for the listeners of Soul Sync to try and add as much value as possible. But naturally, I'm sure I'm going to ask some things about mediumship, which is what I'm interested in. And also a lot of the listeners here are interested in. So without further ado then, Sarah, I guess I will hand over to you, but also mainly Master Chou.
Yeah, okay. So let's give it a second. Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
So how can I help?
Well, firstly, it's very nice to meet you, and thank you for coming on to the Soul Sync podcast to speak to me today. And
That's all right.
Oh, thank you. And to speak to all of the lovely listeners who are very excited and happy to have you here.
Well, we hope. You think. We're not sure, but maybe.
I think we're going to have a lovely chat. So I guess my first question is, could you tell us more about you and about your physical existence on planet Earth?
Which one?
Oh, well, I guess your most recent incarnation.
Well, not very interesting. Small boy named Johnny died from own stupidity.
Oh. And when was that? Which year was that? Do you know?
Years round about beginning of Second World War.
Okay. And how was it that you've come to work with Sarah? What made Sarah stand out for you as someone to work with?
Have to understand that the vessels are chosen for lots of reasons. Sometimes it is emotional compatibility, psychological compatibility. There has to be a willingness to give up control, to be used as a vessel. So that's a key thing. Also, what does the soul in this lifetime want to do? So what does her soul want to do? What is it agreeing to? What's it trying to achieve? And does that line up with what we're trying to achieve. And then there's also similarities in experiences, lifetimes and that sort of thing. Doesn't mean we've had lifetimes together, but we've done similar sorts of journeys, similar sorts of number of lifetimes. We're of a similar sort of level of learning and experience. So there's lots of factors that go into choosing a vessel for this type of work. And then there's, of course, the patiently sitting around waiting for them in the physical life to get around to actually letting us do the work.
Are you always with Sarah, or at times, is your kind of existence in other places? Are you always watching over her?
Sounded a little creepy the way you said it the first time. You always with her. I sounded a little bit like a stalker. But in the essence of knowingness, a bonded link, if you like, yes, I'm always with her. Watching over her shoulder, though, no, she'd be very annoyed at me if I kept doing that. But we have a connection that it's instantaneous. If she calls, I'm here. If I need to come, I'm here. When we're working together, obviously, I'm here. So time and space really don't factor in that. But watching her every move, no, that would overstep a boundary.
Would you describe yourself as, and I know that I'm going to be using a lot of earthly terms here, but would you describe yourself as a spirit guide to Sarah?
No, I am not a guide. I do not guide her life. No, I communicate for the purpose of assisting humanity. So I am a spirit being who steps forward as a communicator.
And on your mission to help humanity, what do you feel are some of the greatest challenges we're facing at present?
Interesting. I think I would probably go to things you don't immediately think of. I suppose most of your listeners will be looking at the chaos and the war and the famine and the greed. But actually, all of those are just symptoms of a far deeper problem. The problem that you are no longer connected to your souls, that you have got caught up in physical material things and lost your spiritual connection. And that spiritual connection doesn't have to have anything to do with religion. That's down to your individual needs, your individual soul needs. But the connectiveness to the fact that you have a soul, that you are part of something greater than yourselves, that the soul knows why it is here, what it is doing, you've lost connection to that. More importantly, you've also started to shift your connectivity to the aspects of yourself. So your emotions, for instance. A lot of you talk a very good game about being emotional, but it's all coming from a psychological place. So your connection to self-love is completely warped. And when it's warped, that affects everything that you do. So many of you are living in extreme versions of the lives you have come here to live, instead of the calmest, easiest life of flow. So that for me as a communicator, but for many spirits is our target. We want to get you back into connection with yourself. From there, you fix everything outward. There's too much focusing on trying to fix the problem, but the problem is actually just a symptom, not the root cause. The root cause is you've lost connection to yourselves.
When did we start becoming more disconnected? Was it kind of around the time of, internet TV, or was it way before that?
No. Industrial Revolution was a big problem. When you lived simpler lives and you lived in communities and you knew who your neighbors were, and there was a community feeling or a tribe feeling, depending where you are in the world and what word suits you better. You had a closer connectivity to yourselves, but also to the earth, to your physicality and your spirituality. Industrial Revolution started to push other agendas, started to drive different parts of you. So that was a real problem. So a lot of the shift in the Western world occurred then. In non-Western world, then that shift has occurred slightly later, mostly through imposed imperialism and imposed doctrine from Western countries. So at different points throughout your history, but if you take the Industrial Revolution, that's a pretty good push towards less connectivity to the earth and to yourselves.
It sounds to me that it was when the world started becoming more commodity
Yes.
driven, is what I'm
In
taking from that.
There'd always been materialism. It'd always been there, but it was driven from a very different place. Greed suddenly had so much more fervor. The hunger for money had so much more fervor. It was suddenly a way of filling the lack within yourself in a way it hadn't been quite before. I mean, you'll see it slightly in the gold rushes that hit certain continents, that there was a bit of that fever, but it didn't infiltrate as many people as the Industrial Revolution hit huge swathes of your population almost overnight. And we then started to get onto the treadmill of invention and innovation and necessity driving things, even when there wasn't really a necessity for it. Your technology now, your internety thing, the worldy widey web thing is all a spin-off from that. Pardon the pun.
It sounds to me that you've probably got more work on your plate than you've ever had in your mission to help people connect with their soul in the world that we're living in a human existence.
In the nature of that specific problem, I can take that point, yes.
How? Because a lot of the listeners who listen to this podcast, myself included, I'm trying to, and a lot of people listening to this are trying to feel more spiritually connected and connected to the soul.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm sure you've seen many times, we struggle with this, and it is something that we find difficult. How would you, from all of your, much greater knowledge than I, how would you suggest in the simplest way possible that we can start connecting with our soul and feeling what we should be feeling?
Okay. Firstly, you're using lots of nice words.
I am.
Right? But that is absolutely meaningless if you don't really know what they mean.
Okay.
So to talk about being spiritual only works if you know what being spiritual actually means. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're doing an artificial version of it based on somebody else's idea of what it is. Yes? Same with the soul. What is the soul? What do you mean when you're trying to connect to the soul? What do you think it is? Where do you think it is? If you don't have those answers, you're shooting in the dark.
Okay. So I will ask this more simply. How would you define spirituality and being spiritual?
Well, spirituality is really simple. It's the knowing that you have a soul, and your soul is part of something greater than yourself. It is part of spirit. That, in a nutshell, is spirituality.
You make it sound very simple. This is where we get caught up as humans.
Very simple. Yes, that's the thing. When it starts to get overly complicated, overly elaborate, lots of bells and whistles, then ego or other aspects are starting to come in to muddy the water. And a lot of people trying to do spirituality are doing it through ritual.
Yes.
But we don't care about ritual. What does that mean to spirit?
Okay, I'll ask this. I'll ask a personal question there. So I am trying to develop my mediumship and be able to connect with the spirit world.
Okay.
One thing.
Stop you there. What does that have to do with spirituality?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess nothing.
Nothing. They're mutually exclusive. You can be a spiritual person and a medium. You can be a medium and not a spiritual person.
Thank you.
So, again, you've already fallen into the trap.
Okay, understood. So when I'm trying to sit in my own power, the term that people use is sit in the power.
Yes.
I struggle with doing that.
Of course, because it's completely bizarre.
How would you suggest that one should sit in the power of their own soul?
But why are you trying to sit in power?
So I'm trying to, and this is what I've been taught.
I'll stop you there. How many times already have you used the word trying?
Quite a few times.
Yes. There's a trap. Psychologically, trying is a trap. Trying already shows you that there is a trap. There is something in your belief systems. There is something in how you are doing things that is keeping you in a mental trap. Trying is a sign of that sort of trap. So don't try. We never ask you to try. You don't need to try. You just need to do, to allow. So working with your soul, working with spirit isn't about trying. Trying is forced from the mind. It's about being. Notice hand movements, right? Trying, I'm pushing upwards into the air.
Yes.
Being, I'm bringing my hands downwards. A lot of what you're doing in your world, and this is more of a global reference now, it's up and out. Yes, you'd understand.
Yes.
Not even forwards, which is the way your soul is trying to go, but up and out. So going in the wrong direction. So if you want to be spiritual, if you want to connect to your soul, consider the directions you are moving in. What directions do your words take? What directions do your intentions take? Are you actually directing yourself towards your soul or away from it?
I think this is a problem of the ego minds, most likely, and getting caught within the human side of things.
No, not the human side. Ego.
Ego. Yeah.
Because you're meant to be human. The soul's meant to be here. The soul wants to learn for being human. Being a human is not the problem.
It's the
being
ego.
Out of balance with being a human and a soul. That's the problem.
Thank you for that. That's helpful and it does make sense. I want to come on to ask about chakras and the role that chakras play in our health. Can you shed any light on the chakra system from your perspective?
That's a fun one. I'm going to quote the Vessel here, actually, because Vessel teaches a lot about the energy system. And I love the way she puts it. She always tells her students to consider the chakra system as the plumbing. So it's conduits. Think of the chakra system as pathways that allow energy and information to flow. It's just a plumbing system within your energetic structure. But you've made it actually the control mechanism. Would you understand that?
Yes.
So in a way, your pipes are telling you what to do. But they're not designed to do that. They're just carriers. They're just pathways for things to flow through. They don't really have autonomy. So actually, with regards to your health, they knock on and impact your health. But quite often that problem has started somewhere else, generally within your aura. So as she says, chakras are plumbing, aura is the house. So if you do not have the house in good order, if your roof leaks and your front door is wide open, who cares whether your toilet flushes? That's a direct quote from my Vessel. I like that one.
That does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, visually, it works, doesn't it? So that's why
it does work.
I like it when she does it. We always have a good laugh when we sit up here listening to her talk about toilets flushing. It is what you're doing. You're all focusing on making sure the upstairs bathroom works, forgetting whether or not your house is subsiding.
Yes, I can take the analogy. It does make sense.
It makes sense because you are focusing in the wrong place. Because your East and Western breaking down of these ideas has ginormous Chinese whisper. You've morphed the information to suit undercurrent agendas. And it's made you less spiritual. It's made you less connected to your soul and yourself, not more. And so that's why when you said about sitting in the power, what does any of this have to do with power?
Yeah, do you know what? I've never had someone from your realm speak to me about these sorts of subjects, so it's very interesting to hear your perspective.
So where did it come from then?
For me, to be quite honest with you, sitting in the power is something that the term of it, I've never really understood it myself.
But then why do you
because
try to do it?
Because so many people have mentioned
Right.
that's what you do in that term, teachers.
Chinese whisper, great Chinese whisper. Why? Comes back to the same thing. You want to be spiritual, but how can you be spiritual if you don't actually know what that is? How would you ever know you'd achieved it?
My belief is I would know. I've got taught the mechanisms, but my belief is I would know once I'd finally done it by the feeling I would have.
But you wouldn't be able to sustain it or hold it because you wouldn't really understand how you got there.
No, and that's probably why I haven't really advanced too far in my mediumship.
Yes, because you have to look at the language. Why are they using the words they are using? What does it mean? What did it mean when they started this thing? Because I can tell you now, when they talked about sitting in the power, when they very first started to use that phrase, it had nothing to do with connecting to spirit.
What was it to do with?
Back to temples and rituals. Sitting in personal power, sitting in collective energy of magnetism, sitting in the power of nature and the power of the human body itself, your own power, your connection to the earth. That's where sitting in the power comes from as a phrase.
See, if you was to have said it like that, sitting within the power of your body, the universe, that makes sense.
But
That does make
have to do with spirit.
Well, okay, I'll go back to it. This is my understanding. By sitting in your power and your energy, it allows you to feel what your energy is. So then you're more aware of when a spirit energy comes in. So by knowing your energy, you can then know the energy of a spirit person. So you can distinguish.
Then you're talking now about self-awareness.
Yes, I am. Talking.
Why don't they say that?
It's a very good. Why don't they say that?
Why don't they say it's about being self-aware? And no offense, but we told you 2,000 years ago, know thyself. Wrote it in front of, over big stones, over temple buildings. Know thyself. And its twin, nothing in excess.
Yeah, I think we need that on more stones and more buildings now. By the looks of it, I think that could be on the top of lots of buildings.
But you're doing it from a place of ego, and we're still now spiritual ego, a whole new layer of ego that humanity has twisted into formation. This idea of spiritual bliss and ecstasy and superiority, it's warped, very warped.
Well, I do notice that with spiritual teachers and the way that people seem to give a lot of their power away to the teacher, when at the end of the day it's just the teacher's opinions and beliefs, and you have to take what works for you. And
I would hope it's not opinions and beliefs. I would hope it was knowledge, but I take
yes, yes, you're right. So I just want to go on the mediumship for one more and just stay on this subject for a moment. So you said there it's about self-awareness. So can you describe to me, if someone listening to this, myself included, wants to try and make a connection to the spirit world, simply speaking, how can they do it? Using your...
Say hello.
Say that again, sorry?
Turn around and say hello. Because the first place you should start is you should start by trying to talk and work with your own guides. They're there, wanting to assist. They're there, assisting quietly in the background. So if you want to start having a connection with spirit, start with the ones who have nothing to do all day long, but look after you. Don't overshoot.
I don't believe I've ever had a conversation with my guides.
Why not?
Because do you know what? I feel like maybe I have felt them, maybe I haven't felt them, but I've not really known how to. And
but you're trying to call in other people's dead people.
Yes.
but you're not trying to call in the spirit whose sole focus is helping you with your life.
As crazy as it sounds, yes, that's correct.
But notice your own phrase there, as crazy as it sounds.
Yes, because that's because you're asking me a very good question. How, so if it's for you, it's as simple as if I want to talk to my guides, turn around and talk to them and just believe and they will communicate back.
They are always communicating. What takes the time is working out exactly what works for you. You are unique. So for one person, it might be pictures in your mind. Another person, it may be physical sensations. Another person might do much better when it comes through a third party. So someone saying something or hearing a song on the radio, because that might be how they receive information and trust it, not knowing necessarily their guides are behind it. So they have to find out how to work with you. That takes a bit of fine tuning. That takes a bit of patience. Patience. Not instantaneous, not I've got 5 minutes. Cut down, talk to me. Patience, quiet patience. And also, half the time they are talking to you, you cannot hear them because your heads are so full of stuff.
It must be very frustrating to be a guide at times.
Yes. A lot of the time, for a lot of them.
So are you able to see my guides now? Is that how it works for you? Are you able to?
But I see them as they truly are. So I see them as spirit. So I see energy rather than shape or form in the human sense. So I'm aware of your doorkeeper, quite a stoic energy, standing quite far back, doesn't need to be doing anything. So just standing over quite a distance away. Your main guide, however, he's quite chatty. Quite a chatty one. So given half a chance, I think he'd talk your ear off. But see, like attracts like, you see. So you're very chatty. You're very much a chatty person. Your main guide is very chatty. There's a complement there that is necessary. So as a very chatty, inquisitive person, you do no good if your main guide was, tight-lipped.
No, I wouldn't.
You have an equally chatty, curious type of main guide. So know that like attracts like. The energies of your guide are complementary to who you are at your core level, not who you may have become through trauma or being imbalanced in this life, but who you truly are. They resonate with that. So if your true nature is words, they will work very well with words. If your true nature is pictures, they'll work very well with pictures, and so on and so forth. Again, know yourself. Become self-aware. How do you think? How do you act? What do you do? Who are you? Too much of trying to find out who everybody else is.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Is there anything else you are able to tell me about my guide? The main guide?
In what sense?
You mentioned a characteristic of them being chatty. Is there any other characteristics that you can identify?
Equally as impatient. So short attention span, I think, would be the answer to that one.
Oh, yes, that's a very good match there, because I've definitely got one of those.
But also, I would say there's a nice childlike energy coming off of your main guide. And I don't mean that in any sort of derogatory way. I mean in as much as the child with the innocence and the wonder. That part of being a child where you're open to experiencing things without being jaded by adulthood. So there's an energy of that coming off that they're trying to project through as an idea. So not meaning your main guide is a child, but the energy of that childlike wonder is definitely sitting there. That inquisitiveness, but more than that, the desire to understand things, to know that things are possible even when everyone else says they're impossible. But there's an air of that coming off of the main guide too.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can see that when you say about it being a match, I think it sounds like you've just described me to a nutshell. So you definitely, I could definitely take that. So I want to come on and ask you some questions. So recently, I've been reading into the subject of kind of the wider universe, other worlds, other beings, that live in far-flung places.
Mm-hmm.
What can you sort of tell us to educate us in regards to, other existences on other planets and things like that to help us try and understand the wider universe? Is that something you can talk about?
Have to be slightly careful where I tread with this.
Okay.
It comes down again to what do you mean by universe? So do you
Oh,
mean your galaxy, the cosmos, part of the cosmos you are inhabiting? Because if you your
yes.
galaxy, you are the only life.
Okay.
If you mean the greater point of the universe being the actual physical plane in which you exist, which is far vaster than humanity can even comprehend, then of course you're not the only life form. Now, you might be the current one we are doing a dualistic experience with, but you're not the only life form out there. Different levels of, conscious ability. You aren't the only life form that we've ever worked with in sense of coming down and putting souls in, but those other ones predate you.
Okay.
Within your timeline, bearing in mind there is no time in spirit, for us it's all spherical. So it's always slightly difficult to answer humanity's questions that are time orientated.
Yeah, I understand that.
So within your galaxy, you are the life form at this conscious level.
Okay. I don't. When I first started on this journey of becoming interested in kind of the spirit world and things that can't be seen in the material world, what first jolted me onto that journey was understanding near-death experiences, and that prompted me to become very fascinated by what happens when we die from our human body. And a lot of people who first come across this podcast are very scared of the subject of death. Can you tell us what actually happens when we die? And I'll give you a bit of context as to why I'm asking it. So I've read a lot of stories about people, for instance, who are in a hospice who will start to see, loved ones leading up to their death. Obviously, there's a lot of conflicting information about death. What actually happens when we die?
Okay. I have to say I'm talking in much more detail about this later in the year. So
Okay.
I'll try to do a slightly sort of shortened version.
Okay.
It does depend slightly on when you die in the arc of your life. So there are slightly different nuances to the experience, but not the functionality. So the functionality of it is at the point at which the heart takes its last beat, but not necessarily the body takes its last breath. They are two different things. The soul will leave the physical flesh form and return to spirit. That's the functional side of it. The lead up to that, the experiential side for the human being, does depend on where you are in your journey arc. So where you are in the learnings and lessons of this life. Was the death expected? Was it unexpected? So there's lots of different things that can occur. What you're talking about there with the hospice care is when death is creeping up on you slowly like that. So either through age, so you've gone past a good arc of life and you're in the latter section of life, or illness has pushed you into the same type of pattern, then yes, those in spirit that you have an emotional connection with in a good way come and visit you if they are in spirit, to ease your transition, to not so much prepare you, but to keep you company. So that is actually very common, but it doesn't tend to happen in young people. Not unless they've had a very long illness. So if a young person passes, then that's all waiting on this side, because the emotional connection to someone in spirit is very different the longer you've lived your life. Yes. So the more people who have passed already. So it has more significance than it might do for a young person.
Okay.
But there is always someone waiting on our side for you that you know and you love, always. Even if you cannot think of a family member because of some of you have had very difficult lives and you think, I don't want to meet any of my family. It doesn't matter. There will be an energy in spirit you love. You may not be able to name them or know them now while you're in a physical form, but the minute you return to us, you will be greeted by them. And they may come from a long way ago in your history, but there will be an emotional connection, a deep-seated bond that allows them to be a comfort to you.
Okay.
That's what should happen. Now, sometimes because of your beliefs and your expectations of what awaits you, you block that from happening. So you manifest what you believe. So then we have to take a bit longer to get to help that soul, to get through, to let that person that has that love bond come forward to help guide them through the rest of their journey. But we never abandon anyone. There is always a brighter, more hopeful space for you. There is no judgment other than the judgment you manifest for yourself.
And if someone has done something, extremely evil, or
There is no judgment. Only
so everyone
yourself.
receives exactly the same treatment.
Yes, because we do not judge.
Okay.
You might judge yourselves, though.
Yes.
We have to work with you to get yourself past that, to a point where you can look at what you did and understand why you did it and what have you learned from it. But we don't judge.
And I'm assuming
how you return back to us, we do not judge.
I want to come on to a couple of other topics, which are topics that I get a lot of questions about. How, obviously, my understanding is we have a soul plan that we sign up to before we incarnate down on Earth.
Okay. Who do you mean by we in that statement?
Okay. I guess I mean each one of us who's down here on Earth.
Still, who do you mean by we?
Okay. I mean human beings.
No. See, that's where you already skewed all the information. Because what you're doing is you're taking the human identity and projecting it onto spirit.
Yes.
Wrong way around.
Yes.
It doesn't start with you. It starts my side of life. So you have to change the idea of we, or that whole statement there is flawed right from the beginning, because you're including you, the human, in that we. But actually, you are the last part of that puzzle, not the first. You have to change your perspective of we. So if the soul is saying we, it will be including the spirit being it belongs to, who actually makes all the choices, who actually sends down the soul with the plan. It's a good enough word as any for the moment. So the we needs to include the spirit being and the soul. So the spirit being makes the decision, sends the soul down with the decision into the human. Then the soul and the human are a we. But only at that point. Up until then, you're not part of the equation.
Thank you. So we, being the soul and the human that we've now established, how do we know if we're on our soul plan? If we're living the life we should be?
I'll stop you there. Really, really simple. You will not ask that stupid question.
Okay.
Because if you are in flow, if your life is going as it should be, that question does not cross your mind because there's nothing in your life triggering it. So the simple fact that you are asking the question tells you somewhere you're not on path. Whether it's to a small degree or a huge degree, the need to ask the question coming up is your indicator that the answer is yes, you're not. So when you're in flow, that question doesn't arise, has no relevance to arise. The question itself is all the clue you need. It's what you do with the information once you realize, actually, I'm off path. Now what? That's the more interesting question. Not the am I on path? Question itself is its own answer. No, you're not.
Thank you. I'm going to have to watch this all back afterwards. You've said so many interesting things. I've given up trying to make notes now because you've said so much. I want to ask one final question about one topic.
Okay.
Which is, I'm going to talk from my own experiences. There's things in my life that I'm trying to create, and I've always been a believer in, one's ability to attract things into their life by projecting. So, the law of attraction or manifesting and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
How do we, do you believe, is there a belief that we can manifest whatever we want by putting that energy out to the universe?
The problem with that entire statement is the word want.
Mm-hmm.
What wants?
Well, that's a good question. What does what? Well, I guess there's a lot of us that, we might want to go on a holiday.
Want?
How would you say is a better word? What, instead of want?
You have to consider what wants. It's a very important thing to understand that there are parts of you that want. And if those parts are the ones doing the manifesting, then all they're doing is manifesting things that keep pushing you further and further off path. So what wants? Where is that want coming from? What is behind that want? Is it even a want? Want is a very, very loaded word. And if you start your manifesting with I want, you're already in the wrong energy, in the wrong vibration.
How should one manifest?
Depends what it is. If it is something that is a need, then you're trying to manifest things that assist what the soul knows. The soul knows what you need and can manifest what you need without you having to do any of these strange ritual things. If it's something you would like, then that's about, I would like this, attracting it to you. But want is always driven by ego. And if the ego is interfering, then it's either going to bring you something that pushes you further in or pushes you further down.
That's very helpful. I've realized a lot during this conversation that I need to look at my use of language.
Look at the idea of holiday. Do you want a holiday or do you need a holiday?
I would probably say it's neither. It's probably I would like a holiday.
Then why don't you say that? I would like a holiday.
Yeah, do you know what? You've opened my eyes massively to my use of words.
Right. So if you are saying to the universe, which I would question whether or not the universe even then is a very good person or identity to project it to, but we'll leave that for the moment. I
want to ask, who is a good place?
It depends really what you're trying to bring through. But let's just break down this idea of holiday, right?
Yes.
So you say out to the universe, I would like a holiday. Okay.
Yes.
What do you actually think the universe is going to do?
Well, I would hope the universe would take my request and somehow make it work.
What, just magically on your doorstep lands 2 plane tickets and a holiday in Barbados?
No, I would hope, right. So if I said I would like a holiday, so let's just say that let's bring this back to money because that's what I'm really looking for. I would like the money to buy the holiday. I would hope.
But you didn't say that. You said I would like a holiday.
Yes, I would like a holiday.
Right. But then you're leaving it out there with no pathway for it to be made happen and taking no responsibility for how it happens. So, okay, you want that holiday to land on your lap with no effort from you. That means it has to be taken from someone who has made the effort to actually make the holiday and pay for it in order to give it to you for free.
What I would hope is when I put out an intention like that, I hope that the circumstances would align, that put me in the right place at the right time to find the right opportunity and so on, that positions me to have the holiday.
That's not what you're asking.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm just saying I would like the holiday.
Yes. Leaving it up to anything and everything to then decide how that comes together. even if that is at the harm of somebody else.
It's a very interesting way of looking at it, and I do see exactly what you're saying.
It's a connected way of looking at it. It's about looking at things from a place of personal responsibility instead of want. Because when you want something, the consequences be damned.
Yeah.
You don't think, how could spirit or the universe make that happen? I want it. And I'm a good person, so therefore it's only going to happen in a good way. That's very naive. So actually, break it down. Do you need the holiday? So as in physically, mentally, emotionally, you're exhausted and you need a break. That's what a holiday is. A holiday is a break from your life in order to rest. Do you need that?
I wouldn't say it's a need currently. It's more of a like.
Right. Okay. So, at this moment in time in your life, you would like to have a holiday, to have a step away from your life, to go somewhere and do something that's different.
Mm-hmm.
So what's stopping you from making that happen?
That's a very good question. I guess feeling that I need to be available all the time to do my work.
Right. So actually, why are you asking for a holiday? The deeper seated problem here is that you aren't actually listening to your own needs, that you're becoming a people pleaser, that you have a sub-personality functioning there that doesn't allow you to take a step back. That has nothing to do with the holiday. The holiday is a symptom of a deeper problem.
It's true. You're right.
So actually, why aren't you asking for help with the root problem? The root problem being you keep sitting there thinking, I have to be available. And part of that is because you're worrying about money. That is because it's sitting on a lack of self-worth. And that is the underlying problem. You're not asking for help with that. You're asking for a holiday.
Yeah, it's very true. You've given me a lot of food for thought there. So thank you. So I have a bit of a tradition on this podcast where I always ask the guest to leave us on a final thought, a pearl of wisdom or a message. And I would very much like for you, Master Chou, to close the episode today by leaving us with some philosophy or something that you would like to end this the episode and the show with today. What message would you like to leave people on?
One of my pearls of wisdom.
Okay. Yes.
I think we've touched on it slightly with our last part of the topic about personal responsibility. The personal responsibility has to be built on the foundation of self-love and non-judgment. Those three go together. Those are the three key lessons you learn in each lifetime. So if you do not love yourself, you are going to make things so much harder. You are going to have trouble with your beliefs, with your manifesting, with all aspects of your life. If you are sitting in judgment of yourself, you are going to make life harder. And if you don't take responsibility for your actions, you will manifest things you do not mean to manifest that will come back to you tenfold. So consider yourself, not everybody else, yourself. It starts with you. And you are a we, the body and the soul, the personality and the soul. Come back to that knowing, not I, but the true we, the personality and the soul. If it starts from there, things can flow. If it starts from there, things are easy. And then you do not have to ask all these questions because the knowing is there, sitting in front of you. So come back to the true we, the one you need, really, self.
Thank you so much. It's been a delight to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So on that note, then I say goodbye.
Goodbye.